Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another video. But this time it's a little bit of a different video. I've been thinking recently about different videos we can go forward into making, and of course, we've been doing a couple comedy reviews, haven't we? We've been doing a couple film reviews, a couple book reviews. But I thought it's about time that we do something a little bit more, because we've been doing like TV sense reviews. So where better than to draw the line between the comedy and the films and such, and start doing some reviews on some really good, top quality series. So we're starting this whole review session off with the TV series The Bear. So you may be asking yourself, what is The Bear about? Well, essentially, it's about a guy named Carmen, a guy named Richard, a woman named Sugar, a woman named Sydney, a guy named Marcus, and a woman named Tina. Tina is a chef who pretty much is undermined in the beginning of the series. Marcus is a pastry chef. Sydney is an aspiring head chef who essentially has tasted Carmen's food and knows about his reputation. Richard is the cousin of Carmen, not by blood, but by relation and the fact that he lost his family at a very young age. Sugar is Carmen's sister, and essentially that's the cycle of it. So now that I've given you a rough overhaul of all the characters, let's get into the plot of the series as a whole. It turns out that Carmen had a brother who committed suicide at one point after an event. Now, his brother Michael, it's not very clear in the series when upon his suicide takes place, but it happens at some point after a really big family row. Now, as the story progresses, we come to learn the fact that Carmen had pitched to his brother in the past about maybe opening a restaurant. Because they live in the suburbs and essentially live in a bit of a rundown area, Michael, he laughs at the idea. He doesn't quite believe in it, but then eventually one day they all decide to open up a sandwich shop. After a massive family tiff, Michael keeps continuing running the shop along with Richard, Tina, and Marcus. Meanwhile, Carmen goes off to culinary school to learn to become the greatest chef he can be. However, whilst at the culinary school, he finds himself under immense pressure to make sure every single dish is perfect. And of course, after Michael's death, he feels like he has something to prove. He always wanted to work in the shop that Michael owned, but his brother never let him. Now, we don't know whether this is because his brother believed he could do better, or maybe because his brother didn't want him to deal with the pressure of the shop, but something definitely gave his brother the idea not to let him work in the shop and preferred him to go off and go to culinary school. But when Carmen comes back to the shop and tries to run it alongside all the fellow chefs, the place becomes chaotic. Tina, Marcus, and all the workers feel like they're being put under immense pressure, and to make the fire even worse, Carmen takes on a young sous chef named Sydney. Sydney begins to walk round the shop barking orders at everyone and essentially putting them in their place, but all the staff feel more like she's just taking the mick. She's just a kid to them, and as far as they're concerned, it seems like she is just taking the absolute biscuit. To make matters worse, every time that there's a stock problem or an essential problem in the kitchen, Carmen does nothing more than break down and starts chucking things around the restaurant. Richard and Carmen have a constant bickering throughout the series about exactly who owns the shop and what they're doing, and Carmen pretty much bites back about the fact that Michael left the shop to Carmen, not Richard, but Richard is still living in the past and the times when the place was an absolute dosshole and pretty much just living off the reputation of people coming in and enjoying the sandwiches. As the series progresses, we finally find out why Carmen's always so on edge. It turns out that he had a chef over his head who then followed on to become a critic. A chef that used to make him bleed his knuckles till they were dry in the kitchen until he believed that the dishes he performed were perfect. A lot of other chefs at culinary school must have picked up on this because when they go back to the reunion later on in the series, it turns out that they all know exactly who Carmen's talking about. However, back to the restaurant, which was originally a sandwich shop, we learn that as the story progresses, Michael almost let the place go up in flames, potentially for an insurance scam, potentially to get some money out of them and rebuild the shop, potentially just to get some profit. It also turns out that Michael had been letting Richard pretty much sell cocaine outside the back of the shop just to make money and ends meet to pay up the rent. As the story progresses and the relationship between Carmen and Sydney becomes very respectful, it turns out that Carmen has big plans for Sydney in the future. But as the series progresses, we don't really know this until the recent series. To improve the state of the restaurant and its critique, Carmen sends Tina off to a culinary school, and he sends Marcus off to essentially go to Denmark and learn how to make a specific pudding. Marcus also points out to Carmen the fact that a lot of his inspiration comes from donut shops, sweets, and a lot of the way that the city is designed. Carmen can relate with this because every single recipe he's ever cooked, every single plate he's ever dished, he has a secret little diary that he draws everything in. We have a couple flashbacks to exactly how people got into working in the restaurant, and one of the most significant ones is Tina. Tina was originally an office worker who just wanted to live her life the way it should be lived, but of course, as most things do in life, things came crashing down on her real quickly. Her company decided to let her go, and of course she went looking for another job. After going on LinkedIn, a place a lot of us have been in this world, essentially she finds herself in more of a rut than needed. She finds that there's a false job, and after her way out from the office in an absolute rage against the company for making a false ad, she then goes across the road to a sandwich shop. When she walks into the sandwich shop, she ends up feeling in a bottle of tears after the guy over the counter gives her a free sandwich because the person in the shop didn't call out their order. She originally only went into the shop for a cup of coffee, but she ends up sitting down with the boss and bawling her eyes out. Not out of tears of sadness, but actually out of tears of joy. When the boss Michael asks her exactly what's going on and why she decided to end up in his shop, she points out the fact that she was looking for a job in a society which seems to thrive on there being less and less jobs each day, and she's just looking for a break. Michael points out to her that he believes the sandwich shop to be an absolute shithole, and he wouldn't really recommend that anyone works there, if he be honest. But nevertheless, he decides to take her on and pretty much gives her the job. She's over the moon and takes the job within seconds. An honourable mention of a character who works in the kitchen is Abraham. Abraham is a very difficult character in this series. You either love him or you hate him. Not that you hate him in the sense that he's a horrible person, but he is very difficult in the beginning of the series, as he starts off as a guy in the kitchen who is very used to the way things are. But the time that you start to slightly despise him is after him and Tina are both sent to culinary school. Tina stays and learns how to cook, while Abraham takes the easy route out and essentially jumps off the train at the first hurdle. However, he does redeem himself in the later series when he comes back to run the sandwich shop rather than work in the restaurant. Now we come on to two of my most favourite characters in this series. Matty Matheson and Ricky Staffon play a great play on the two twins from Alice in Wonderland. Sugar has these two lads who work in the restaurant for her. They are supposed to essentially be waiting staff, but the way that they come across as family and funny and bubbly is why I love these two characters so much. They do dumb things, and the best part about it is their dumb things lead to funny moments. They both see Sugar, Cameron's sister, as the kind of mother figure to them, along with seeing Carmen and Richard as like their brothers. As the story progresses, these two do absolutely so many funny things. One of the standout points I've got to say is one of the arguments with Sugar about her ex, and another argument was about one of them going out into the restaurant and pouring a bowl of soup in front of a bunch of guests. So Richard basically asked one of them to go out with this food that's like a hot steamed soup, and he asked them to go out and make sure he pours it in front of the guests. What he doesn't expect one of them to do, however, is to go back in the kitchen with the same soup rather than serve it to the guests. What's happened is he's taken the instruction literally, and he's gone, okay, I'm going to take the tray, I'm going to walk up to the customers, I'm going to pour it in the bowls, and then I'm going to take the tray, and I'm going to walk back in the kitchen with the same food still on the tray. The brilliance, though, of this naivety and some of the comedy between these two as well is this idea that one of them gets really paranoid in one of the episodes. He does one of the most human things anyone can ever do, and that is worry about people's opinions. He gets very worried or very flustered when asked why he's not doing things the way people have asked him to do. And one of the reasons for this during one of the practices is he felt like he was an outsider, like he didn't belong. When he had all these new staff coming in on the waiting service, he felt like they were a little bit better than him. Next up on one of these little character analysis through the series is Sugar, the absolute goddess in this whole series. She is pregnant. She gives birth in a hospital with her mother after not being able to reach anyone from the restaurant after literally just going out for napkins. She puts Cameron in his place. She puts Richard in his place. She puts absolutely every single person in that restaurant, down to the T, down to everyone in the background, in their place. Sugar is just a legend. The next two characters on the goddess list for this series as a whole has got to be Jessica and Claire Bear, hands down alone. Jessica is very authoritative, she's very stern, she knows exactly what she's doing, she knows her role, and most importantly, she overdoes it as well, the right amount. Alongside her, Claire Bear. Claire Bear, a young lady who works as a nurse, is constantly having to deal with people's problems and situations and just trying to be there for people. The juxtaposition between both of their roles is absolutely breathtaking. In one hand, you have a server who pretty much went and worked for a restaurant and takes no crap. And on the other hand, you have a nurse who literally tries to make it her job to make everyone else happy, even if it breaks her own self esteem. Carmen and Claire's relationship throughout the series is very complicated. Carmen has been seeing Claire since back in the day, and no one else in the show. Both the relationship between Carmen and Claire is so overhauled with emotions that they both have to confide in each other all the time. Donna and Jimmy. Jimmy is literally the godfather of the Bear series. He's the uncle who turns up, the uncle who gives people chances, the uncle who literally does the stats. He even has a friend called Computer who does a lot of the money taking, and he puts him in his place. Donna. Donna is a very complicated and depressed, but also very emotionally destroyed character. She's a mother who's been trying for very many years, has always lived on her tough high horses, and one day she just snaps. Donna, whilst at a family do with the whole family, she tries to cook seven fishes, and has a mental breakdown, and a lot of things get in the way, and she starts to worry that her family doesn't appreciate the work that she does for them. So she goes outside, she gets her car, and she drives it into the living room. Yeah, I know, just an average Tuesday. Olivia Colman and Will Porter, two phenomenal actors that absolutely give their heart in this series. Will is the one teaching Marcus, and Olivia is the one teaching Richard. Richard has a bit of a tiff with Carmen about why he's gone off to a culinary school as a waiter, and a kind of behind the scenes staff member. And halfway through a conversation, when he finally gets along with Olivia Colman's character, he asks whether Carmen sent him there as a handout, and Olivia Colman pretty much just says, "I don't do handouts." Will's character is a very strong, hardened character, but also a very down to earth person. He comes across in his first episode as like this tough guy, but as the story progresses and as the series progresses, it turns out that he's not really someone who is trying to get on people's cases. He's more someone who is just trying to get you to do your best. And this comes across when he talks to Marcus. The pair of them compare things from back home and over here, and uh, their character dynamic and his friendliness with all the other chefs really comes across. So now that we've got through all the analysis and we do such and such, let's get to like the pinnacle moment in this whole turning point of the series. Sydney and Carmen end up in the back of the restaurant one night after everything has finally gone to plan, and Sydney loses it mentally with Carmen after trying to and failing to smoke a cigarette. It turns out that Carmen had changed the deeds and essentially had put Sydney in charge because he knows that she can be the chef he never could. He literally has spent his whole life and his whole career trying to be one of the best chefs ever, and all it ever does is breaks his mental health and causes him to act out on the people around him. And that is why he wants her to be the head chef. Sydney has an argument and essentially Richard comes out, and then she only finally agrees to this agreement on the basis that Richard gets a shared partnership in the deal. The biggest reason for Carmen doing this throughout the whole series, and the biggest reason why he comes to this conclusion with Sydney, is because of the incident that happened on opening night. On opening night, Carmen falls out with his girlfriend after being locked in a freezer. Why was he locked in a freezer, you may be asking? Well, the handle was broken and no one checked it that day and got it repaired. He starts acting out, and he doesn't just hurt his girlfriend in the process, he hurts all of the staff and everyone in the restaurant at the same time. Richard has a go at him through the door and essentially leaves him there until someone breaks him out. Carmen spends a very long time in that freezer contemplating about the reality of the situation and what he means to the restaurant. And it just occurs to him as he gets further on in the series that he's the poison and they are the anti-poison. And by them working on the restaurant, they can truly make it a place that family and friends want to come to. So he steps down, he goes off with Claire, and essentially signs over the deeds to the rest of the family because it knows it's finally time for him to get out. So what did I think of the Bear series as a whole? I love it. It has family, it has friendship, it has relationships, and most importantly, it has the key core message that sometimes in life you just need to get out, and other times in life you need to push yourself to become the best that you can become. And for that reason, I'm going to start off this whole TV series review with a 10 out of 10 for this series. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next TV series review and the other reviews that I should have coming out over the next couple of days. Quick little clause though, there may be a lack of reviews by Thursday, as I'll be out in London, and then the following day I'll be in Cardiff, so videos will not most probably be coming out until that Saturday. Thank you again all for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Stay gorgeous, stay beautiful, and goodbye for now.